Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our Greenroom Matters. I'm your host on this program, Cyrus, pastor at Victory Bible Church here in Kitwe. I want to thank all of you who join us and watch our broadcast every week on Mondays. And it's been very interesting. The topics that we have covered over the past few weeks have been quite interesting. And we are picking very real issues of life, the things that we probably may not have a greater and deeper understanding into in the lives of our following Christ and also in the nation. And so tonight's program centers on a very good subject, a very interesting subject. So our topic of discussion this evening is going to be financial integrity. Financial integrity. Now, to discuss this matter, to shed more light on this matter, I have a great servant of God who is joining us on this broadcast. He's a man I have known for many years. We were together in Bible school. He's a man I have watched closely. I have seen how he has progressed. I know his life. I respect this man of God. With all my heart from him, I have learned a lot of things, and we continue doing life together. On the program tonight, help me welcome a dear colleague, friend, Bishop Moses Sinpungwe, who is the bishop in the Grace Ministries, and is the overseer for the Copper Belt and Northwestern, but also he's the senior pastor for the Grace Church in Kalulushi, that is Bethel Celebration Center. Welcome, Bishop Moses.
Thank you very much. I am so honored to be here, and it's good to once again join up with you. I have been watching the program on Facebook, and I must say that it's been a great blessing, and I'm honored to be part of what you're doing.
Thank you very much. And also we want to say thank you for responding to our invitations, and you've been a great blessing to Victory. People love you here, people honor you, and we really appreciate your ministry, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. It's always a joy to be part of what God is doing with you here at Victory Bible Church, and I must say that you are a great admiration and a great person to follow and to observe.
Thank you very much. Our topic of discussion is financial integrity. For the sake of our viewers, let me take this liberty to quickly give you the biblical, or not the biblical, the dictionary definition of the word integrity, and then we are going to build a case from there. So the word integrity is defined as the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles. I'll say that again. It is the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles. So integrity is vast. It can be financial integrity, it can be leadership integrity. It covers quite a wide spectrum. But in our discussion, we are centering it just on finances. So, Bishop Moses, as we deal with this matter, we will divide it into two sections. First of all, it's going to be a part that deals with church integrity, church financial integrity, how the church administers the finances and everything like that. And then the second part of our discussion is going to be now individual integrity with finances, because sometimes we all focus on the bigger the spectrum or bigger picture about the collective management of finances for the church. Yet as individuals, we do not know that personal integrity is important. So, to begin with, we're going to begin, as we look on the financial integrity of the church, we will begin from the negative and then build to the positive. There is been a wide understanding that there is no accountability in church financially. And also, it is believed that pastors are there just to make money for themselves using the institutions of the church. And of course, as you answer, you and I know that we have those kind of people. We have those kind of people whose aim is just to make money from church. But let's begin by answering the question: do we have any instances in the body of Christ, or what could be some of the things that have affected us negatively financially in church as far as mismanagement is concerned?
Well, I think that the subject of finances, whenever finances are involved, it can actually be a very, very touchy issue.
Yes.
And this is true in regards to church finances. And some of this is understandable, because you have a person who is giving sacrificially to the work of the Lord. Sometimes they don't have, but they want to see the church progressing and the church going forward. And so when they give their monies, usually they'll follow with interest to see how their monies are being managed, And one of the major issues, first and foremost, and I'm going to be very candid as we deal with this subject, one of the reasons why certain people feel that finances are being mismanaged is usually when they look at the lifestyle of the pastors involved. And we need to strike a balance when we are dealing with a subject like this one. First and foremost, I will speak from my understanding of how church finances must be managed and how that we must be prudent with church resources, because church monies are public funds. I mean, you have been exposed to the Western world, and you know how these issues can be very, very damaging to one's reputation if proper records are not kept. So from our side, like as in Grace Ministries Mission International, me as a pastor, I am not a signatory to any church account. I do not, I'm not part of the finance committee. So to try and create financial integrity, and I would like to speak to pastors that could be watching us tonight, and also to help pastors not to be found in issues of church finances, it will be important or prudent to set up a system as churches. And in our setup, me as a pastor, I have somebody who we call a church treasurer. That is a common reference to the person who keeps money. Now we have begun to go corporate kind of, or business kind of. So we have church accountants, if you want. So you can have an accountant, a church person who keeps finances. You can call them our church accountant. So we have church accountants or treasurers who are given the liberty and the freedom to constitute what we call a finance committee. So when monies are given, whether it is in the midweek service, prayer service, church service, conferences, when monies are given, and whilst I'm on this point, it's critical for us to mention that church finances have not just been abused by pastors, but certain individuals in the church also have stolen church money.
That's very true.
We have heard such kind of stories.
We have even seen that.
And we have seen some of it happening. So to safeguard the resources that are given to us, because the Bible tells us to be good stewards. And if we are going to be good stewards, we have to put a team together. So there's a team that is assembled. And when monies are collected, this finance committee gets the monies and they go in a counting room. They should be not less than 2 individuals at any given point when monies have been collected. This is to protect the resources that are given, but also to protect the individuals that have been given an opportunity to look after God's property. Because church funds is God's property, And so those are systems that must be created. So much that if there be any question regarding issues of money, we are seated in a meeting. It's not even me who's going to be responding to that. I'll be able to simply refer it to a person who is in charge of finances to say, can you respond to that query? And the transparency, the integrity around it, and the honesty around it should be in such a way that if anybody wants to come and have a look or have a glimpse at how church finances are moving, they are free to approach the church treasurer, and they are going to be given the liberty to see how church finances are flowing. When we have built such kind of systems, it will protect me as a pastor from accusations that I am misusing church funds. But let me also be quick to say, it is not right, and people must have the right to not to think that church funds are being misused. They should trust. That's the word I was looking for. They should be able to have trust for the people that are taking care of the resources. Me as a pastor, with all honesty, cannot misuse church funds. I'm talking from experience. Most pastors I know actually push personal resources into the work, just that so that the work can progress. You know, so people must have the trust to know that our leaders are doing the right thing. But in order for us not to have a lot of speculations and suspicion that church finances are being misused, I think it is important to build systems. Although, when you read the Bible, there is no explicit instruction of having church committees to look after resources. The only thing we come close to is when you read 1 Corinthians chapter 16 from verse 1 to 4, where Paul is talking about how believers must put the resources together before he comes, and so that when he comes, he will find monies already collected. So there was, it gives you an impression that there was a group of people that were responsible of collecting monies, and then the monies were passed on to Paul so that Paul can distribute to churches that were in need. But like I have already said, much of it is because of our lifestyles. You know, because when people look at the way you are dressed, they will immediately think that is my tithe. You know, but that may not be accurate, you know, because there are certain things that you are doing. You may be running business, you may be doing this and that, and maybe somebody in the church may have bought the suit for you. So I think that church finances is a very, very hot issue, and we will see how we can be able to bring in a balance as we progress on the program.
All right, so from what you have established, Bishop, we can say that you can be a man of integrity and you are doing everything right. But if there are no systems, it's very difficult for people to trust you. I would probably say where there is money, there is no trust. Where there's money, there's no trust. There's always arguments over money, and we kill over money. So the best way to protect ourselves is to create a system that speaks for us, not ourselves explaining. And those systems must be created intentionally. They must reflect the integrity that we personally hold. That's very interesting. But again, we are aware of certain churches that have got no structure. When the offering is collected, it's the man of God gets it. Especially these churches where there's no accountability, there's no one who checks on the pastor. Sorry to say this, most of independent churches, because when you are independent, you are really independent. So what is your word of advice to such people?
Yes, and very, very critical question you have brought up. I was just talking about a committee that gets together. Once they count, they have to record the monies that have come in. And in certain systems, you are not supposed to expend anything on Sunday until the monies are banked. This helps you to keep a high level of integrity, you know, because money has really destroyed reputations, you know. So systems are very, very important for anybody who wants to remain, upright in the eyes of the people as well as in the face of God. Now, independent churches, like you have said, should not be exempted. You cannot be independent and you want to run church the way you want to run.
You cannot be independent from accountability.
No, you can't. Accountability is accountability. And these, what we are talking about, are church funds. They are public funds. You know? So, my encouragement would be, if you are running an independent church, or indeed even us who are in denominations, get people that are schooled in the area of finances. Put them in charge. They'll make you look very smart. You know, people don't know that behind a program like this are people that are very knowledgeable of what we are doing. Now, when we are watching, we will look at Pastor Cyrus. He's the only face we are seeing, together with the guest he has invited. Yes. Okay, and we will say Pastor Cyrus is smart. But the people that are making you look smart are the people behind the cameras as we talk right now.
We don't even know how they connect the cables.
Absolutely. I mean, I was just here looking at them doing cables, fidgeting with cables, asking us to do testing 1, 2, and things like that. And the people that are watching this program right now have no idea. All they are seeing is you and me. But behind all this beauty and glamour they are seeing are people that have spent hours to set up the system before we come. So even when it comes to issues of finances, it's the same thing. Get people who are accountants where they are working. Get people who are bankers where they are working. Let them constitute the finance committee so that we can be able to say, like Jesus said, the enemy has come to me and he has no part. You know, it is very, very critical for us to put systems in place. And those are some of the things that we can learn from what we refer to as mainline churches. You know, they give even financial reports. You know, you cannot be running a church and you have never given a financial report of how monies have been given and how they have been, how much you received and how much has been spent. It's very, very critical. And if we are going to attract serious people in our churches, we need to have systems. I can walk into a church, look at what is happening, and I'll know whether people are organized or they are not organized. And some of the reasons why our churches don't seem to grow and retain very serious people in society is because of certain things that we have overlooked. And as Pentecostals and charismatics, I think it is important for us to know that we can be very good at the spiritual aspect, but we need to balance it up with administration.
Talking about that, Bishop Moses, I have been exposed to a lot of ministries in the Western countries, but let me give just an example somewhere around where we are. I have been to Bishop Tudor Bismarck's church. I have interacted with his office. I have spent time just around that system. And this is what I personally have been advocating for, and I know we are going there. The staff that serve in the administration are degree holders. And I'm not talking about just degree holders, like the personal assistant or let's call it in the charismatic way, the armor bearer to Bishop Tudor Bismarck. The guy is intelligent. He's a highly qualified individual. I don't know what kind of qualification he's got, but I know degrees upon degrees. He was one of the best students in Zimbabwe. And he is serving with the man of God. So I think where the problem has been, and probably this is connected to what we're talking about, one of the reasons why we are unable to hire qualified people to serve, it's because of this thing we're talking about, money. Because to find someone who is qualified, we need to have money. And our people, when we talk about money, they think we love money. They say pastors love money. But much of the money that we raise, if not all of the money that we raise, it is for the advancement of the kingdom and the work. So as long as we do not have enough money to pay the qualified staff, we will be doing mediocrity all along.
Yeah, I agree with you, and in most cases, that is why for me, after the exposure that I have had in ministry, I began to appreciate that if you want quality, in your church in terms of everything, including musicians and maybe quality work done, you must be willing to part away with some resources.
Yes.
So we may not be there where we are paying our musicians or whoever we have hired to work in our offices a lot of money.
Yes.
But there is a starting point.
It's a starting point.
And I think that, Pastor Cyrus, you will agree with me that most of the people that are in church are willing to even volunteer.
Yes.
They will volunteer, they will do this. Although, if a person is volunteering and when a person is working, the output and the input is actually going to be different. If I am volunteering, in most cases, I'll just do it in my spare time.
You cannot push a volunteer.
Yeah, that's it. But if you are paying me, I'm going to put in the best.
Exactly.
So what pastors must be able to do is to identify the human resource that God has given you,
yes,
and use them, utilize them. I always tell people in the church to say, look, come and volunteer in your area of strength,
yes,
and make us look smart. If you're good with graphics, come, posters and stuff like that, come and volunteer to do that.
And you do very well with posters and stuff.
Thank you very much, sir. But, it's important for us to mention here that there is a lot of human resource in our churches. We are not short of human resource. People are there who can help us work and who can help us, do a great job. All we need is to identify those people and put them in a place where they are able, to do the records and put systems in place, who is to sign where and things like that. And that gives you freedom as a pastor, to do what you want, because then there's no one who's going to come and accuse you to say, I gave so much money, where was it or where is it? The people that you have put in place are able to come and respond to any queries that people are going to bring about. And people.
Actually, Bishop, I believe that maturity or growth means giving up on some of your independence and your power. Yes. Meaning, as the older you grow, doesn't mean the more independent you become. Actually, the older you grow, the more you lose independence. Because just like even in business, if you want to tender for a big project, they are not just going to give you as an individual. They want to know who is the track record, and they want to know which company is this. Is it limited? Is it what? And stuff like that. Because if they are just dealing with you as an individual, they don't trust you. They want to deal with a company or a corporation. So I believe that as the Lord begins to raise us, then we begin to give up some of our liberties and some of our powers. We begin to bring in people we are accountable to. We begin to bring in people who can handle money without us being there. We begin to bring in people who are good in construction so that we don't do the drawings ourselves. We can give them ideas of what we want, but they can work on the details. And that's, I believe, what leadership is.
Yes, sir. And you see, the other thing, that also we need to underscore here is that from a biblical point of view, when you read the book of Numbers, chapter 18, pastors were actually put in charge of resources, of finances. What we have done is to create this level of transparency. And so we have said, let others do this thing. It's like what the apostles, yes, they are running the finances on our behalf. But when you read the book of Leviticus chapter 18, verse 5 says, and you shall keep the charge of the sanctuary and charge of the altar, that there may be no wrath anymore upon the children of Israel. Look at verse 6, and I behold, I have taken thy brethren the Levites from the children of Israel to you. They are given as a gift for the Lord to do the service of the tabernacle of the congregation. When you read on, Verse 8. I want you to pay attention. The Bible says, and the Lord spoke unto Aaron, behold, also I have given thee charge of mine heave offering. Okay? All the hallowed things of the children of Israel, unto thee have I given them by reason of the anointing, and to your sons by this ordinance forever. Now, underline the word forever. God speaks to Aaron and says, I have given you charge of the offerings. So from the biblical point of view, from the Old Testament, the Levites were put in charge of the offerings. And he's not giving them because they are intelligent or stuff like that. He says, by reason of the anointing. I have given you charge, and you shall be in charge of the offerings. And this is just offerings, by the way. We are not talking about the tithes yet. When you read the book of Numbers 18 itself, I will encourage those of you that are watching us, study the book of Numbers 18. He says, I've given you charge of the offerings and the hallowed things, things that were consecrated. I've given you to be in charge. Then when you go further, he begins to talk about, verse 14 says, I have also, in fact, verse 12 says, all the best of the oil, all the best of the wine, and the wheat, the first fruit, which shall offer unto the Lord, I have given to thee. So he gave these things charge, but he also gave them to the Levites to enjoy, to be able to partake. And then when you read on, he now begins to talk about the tithe. All the tithes that the children of Israel bring, I have given them to you. Okay? But then, with that understanding, with that biblical understanding also, we don't want to create suspicion around the monies that are brought. And so by so doing, we have delegated, like you said. You have to outgrow. You can't be doing everything. Okay? You now give others so that those monies that are coming are not just coming to me as a pastor. There are other members of staff that I have that have to be paid from the same resources. We have bills to pay, water, electricity. We have security guards. We have instruments to replace. We have batteries for these microphones we are using that we have to purchase at any given time. And I think that people must be comfortable to know that they have never come to this church on a Sunday and found that there's no electricity because it was switched off or units were not bought. There's always somebody that is tasked to do that. And guess the monies that we are using to do those things is the same monies that people are giving. So it is important for us to also strike a balance to say, yes, this is the thing that is supposed to be done, but this is what God also has prescribed in the...
We are going to handle that in details, but I just want to make mention, and I want you to make a comment on that one. While we are striving to create systems of transparency, I have seen, especially in some of these traditional churches, sorry to use the word traditional, in as much as they want to keep accountability and everything like that, you find that they can pay for other bills. They can look into any other bill, yet the pastor is the last one.
It's not just traditional churches. I think traditional churches are even more organized than us Pentecostals, because for them, I interact with a number of people from these mainline churches, Catholic and all. They have got systems where sections, cell groups, like we call them, are given a month to visit the pastor's home. And I don't want to ask you, when last did you have a visitation from any church group? You know, and I don't want to talk about myself.
Right.
Because these things don't happen.
Don't happen, yes.
But they help to cushion,
yes,
you as a pastor not to worry about where your next meal is going to come from. If I'm going to be effective in discharging my responsibilities as a pastor, let's be honest, I should not be worried about meal. I should not be worried about electricity. The Bible, when you read the book of Numbers chapter 18, read Numbers chapter 18, it is very clear. It says, these Levites that I have chosen have no inheritance I am their inheritance and their portion forever. That's what God said. They will not have land. In other words, they will not go out there and work and toil. The work of the sanctuary is going to be what they will be doing. So what God says is, these monies that you have given to me, I have given them to the Levites as their portion and as an inheritance forever.
And then Paul comes to talk of that effect.
Yes.
He says, those who serve at the altar
eat what is brought at the altar. And Paul himself says, no man goes for war at his own expense. Do you know that the priests of old time never spent monies on things they were going to put on as they ministered? All of it was provided for. Musicians were taken care of by what people brought into the sanctuary. So, much of, in fact, with this COVID-19, it has taken me back. I have been hearing people who have been saying, we will see how pastors are going to survive.
Yes.
We'll see now, they are going to suffer. But listen to me, there is no pastor, and let me say this, and let me put it on record.
Yes.
Any man of God that God has called cannot struggle in life. You and me have been consistently pouring into people's lives.
Yes.
And as you have been consistent in pouring into people's lives, you can never lack any good thing. I'm telling you the truth. I want to say this, that it is the responsibility. Look at verse 20, Numbers chapter 18, verse 20 says, and the Lord spoke unto Aaron, thou shalt have no inheritance in their land, neither shall you have any part among them. I am thy part and thine inheritance among the children of Israel. And behold, I have given the children of Levi all the 10th in Israel for an inheritance, for the service they do while they serve at the tent of meeting. So, that's why I always laugh when people say, no, that pastor has eaten church money. There's nothing like that. There's nothing like that. God says, I have given them charge. It shall be their portion forever. As a matter of fact, you know that when a person sinned in the olden times and they brought a sacrifice, they left it on the altar. The priest needed to come and get his share from the sacrifice. It was not everything that was burnt or consumed by fire. A priest needed to come and get his share. If a priest delays to come and get a collection of what is supposed to be given to him, the right thigh and the breast part, that was the best that God had designated for the children of Israel, for the priests. That offering became an abomination. In other words, God did not accept that offering until the priest got his share. So this is spiritual for your pastor to partake of what you bring. The problem is when they begin to abuse what has been brought into the house.
So where does now abuse come in?
That's a very good question. I told you that I'll be very candid, as we deal with this issue. I think that pastors must be moderate.
Right.
We need to be moderate with what is brought into our care. Some of it is brought at a very great sacrifice. People have to give out of a lot of sweat. And so when we live beyond what is average, that to the world is viewed as
excessiveness.
Yes, it's abuse. So there must be moderation, in my view, in the way we do things. But that does not mean you should not enjoy life as a man of God.
From what you have said, Bishop, it is, let me use also a very strong word. It's very immoral for a pastor who is serving his people faithfully to be lacking, to be struggling, because they cannot take care of him, because they cannot pay him.
And how is he going to be effective anyway? Listen to me. You should never bring your pastor to a level where he begins to minister from a heart of pain and hate
bitterness.
and bitterness.
Yes.
Make your pastor comfortable.
Right.
You know, your pastor should not just be reduced to somebody who moves around with a bottle to come and anoint your land and anoint your houses, and he has no house. I was ministering in one friend's church not long ago, and he had given his car, he had surrendered his car so that they can sell it, realize the money, and push it in the building project for the church. This is a friend of mine, you know him, I don't want to mention his name.
Yes.
And so he told me he doesn't have a car because he wanted to lead by example so that he can provoke others to do the same. And when I walked into the church, I said, all of you were happy. You're excited when your pastor says, I've surrendered the car. You clapped. And I said to them, I challenged them. True sons would have asked another question. Pastor has given his car. How will he be moving from point A to point B? That should be able to provoke something within you to say, can we do something as regards a pastor's car? But I can tell you, the man of God went ahead, God gave him wisdom, he went into a little bit of farming, and within 3 months he bought his car. And people got offended. Some people who didn't know got offended. They began to think, this is our money. Others began to make stories of, no, maybe this one has done this for him, this politician and stuff like that. And yet the pastor just used the wisdom, you know, that God gives to us to get another vehicle. But let me say it without shame. It is the responsibility of the church to take care of their pastors. But it would be dangerous for a pastor to live their lives entirely waiting for the church people to take care of them. And in the times we are in, I want to pray that every pastor that is watching us will open their eyes to begin to venture into what Paul calls tent making. So that even when Paul is talking, he says we have a right to do these things. But because we do not want to hinder the gospel, we have forfeited these things so that we do not become a hindrance. Beloved, we have brains, we have hands, we have connections. There are things that we can do to realize a livelihood that we can be proud of. Your children and my children will not understand if you tell them, you use spiritual language to say, no, let's continue to trust God. If they want hungry lion, they want it. If they want this, they want denim jeans or stuff like that, they will not hear some of the language that we use in the church. You are a father, you are expected to provide. And I think that it is high time we opened our eyes and began to engage ourselves into ventures that can be able to give us an income.
Next.
Ultimately, even if we say we lay a claim to what we see to say this is ours, it is not ours, because the moment you exit this earth, it remains. It goes to another person, and that person will leave it.
Bishop Bismarck says the problem that we face in church and as pastors, it's because we have not put value on our services.
Paul says that you must esteem those who work among you highly. In fact, the Bible says the elders who conduct the affairs of the work